Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Media Boat Podcast. Today is April the 14th, 2021. This is episode 275 for you longtime listeners. We're still counting, believe it or not, against all odds. 275 smackers. If you don't know what the Media Boat Podcast is, let me tell you. We are a podcast that's dedicated to media, as the name suggests, specifically movies, television, video games, and music, not necessarily in that order. My name is Matt. With me is Mike.
I'm Mike. He's Matt. Media Boat Podcast, almost rounding the corner here to episode 300.
Yeah.
Cue your Snack Cider reference.
This is media. That's the best I got.
This is podcast.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Podcast.
Yes.
That long O sound. Yeah, so let's get right into it.
Another week, more news, more stuff we watched. So yeah, let's get started.
So much to talk about. So let's get right into it. We always start with movies, and we always start movies with the box office. Yes, so much. Our box office is small, but still enough to report, I guess, this week with Godzilla vs. Kong still at your number one spot. $13.8 million this week. That's sitting at $70 million domestic. A respectable amount considering there's still a pandemic on.
Yes, but also consider that is a drastic drop from what it make 60 million last week over the long weekend, opening weekend.
I think it's harder to get people
about 50 million.
I think it's harder to get people right now to go to a movie if it's not premiere week. There's less of an excuse.
Also, HBO Max is a thing.
That's true, but it was a thing on launch week too. So
yes,
who knows what the balance there is of who's staying home to watch it and who isn't.
Well, I guess this is like 2 weeks out technically if it was the 31st. Yeah.
Close enough. Following that at number 2 is Nobody. Bob Odenkirk still kicking ass at number 2 here. $2.6 million.
Definitely got the bump from all the ads they've been running, especially during WrestleMania.
They marketed
so many times that I have to answer, what's that movie?
Is Bob that Odenkirk
what is Nobody?
Bob Odenkirk does Taken is essentially the log line, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's sitting at $15.6 million domestic so far. Number 3, The Unholy, $2.4 million this week, putting that at $6.7 million domestic. 4, Disney still hanging in there with Raya and the Last Dragon, another $2.2 million. That's at 35 total domestic. Probably not as much Disney hoped, but maybe they're making it up in the Disney Plus premium bracket. We'll find out. And then lastly, number 5. Oh yeah, and also I'm sure it'll clean up in video release when it gets there. It's a Disney movie.
Yes.
I'm not worried about Raya. I don't want to pretend that I am. Number 5, Voyagers, $1.3 million this week in its debut. So yeah, we'll see how that goes further down the line.
And nothing upcoming this week.
No new releases. We got a week out from Mortal Kombat, the next big release. So we will tell you all about that next week.
Or at least no big wide release. Nothing labeled for wide release this week.
Yeah. All right, let's get right into movie news then. Let's talk about our top stories this week. Starting off with Sony Pictures and a deal that they made with the streaming company. Hey, I give you one guess. I mean, I know you know because you wrote the story, but one guess on which streaming network they did a deal with.
I'm going to go with Netflix since they already sold them a couple films.
Yes, it's Netflix. It seems obvious. They've already worked with them. They already have movies in the pipeline.
There's a good working relationship.
Yeah, they have already movies in the pipeline announced that have not been released yet that are already under some sort of deal. So they're doubling down by making a 5-year deal with Netflix for the exclusive US rights to stream their theatrical releases in the first pay TV window, starting with the studio's 2022 slate. Note, that means the rest of calendar year's releases for 2021 are not going to necessarily also be Netflix films. This is a future deal.
Right. And this does include that because it says 2022 slate, that means Spider-Man when it comes out in December 2021, technically not part of it.
No, smart. If you ask me, don't want to deal with Disney with that one, guys. That's probably a nightmare. Where was I? Netflix has also set a first look agreement with Sony for all of the studio's original movies produced for the direct to streaming market. So that means before Disney goes shopping around to Hulu, Amazon, etc., Netflix gets to say yes or no. This means that Netflix would have to pass on a project for Sony to be able to sell it to one of those other streamers. Netflix will license an unspecified number of older titles as well from Disney's Disney. See what I did there? Media Boat Podcast, Freudian slip there. Sony's Movie Vault. This deal promises to bring future installments of Spider-Man, Venom, and Jumanji franchises typically 9 months after a film's theatrical release. So just as you said, that means the Spider-Man not likely to premiere when it's new, but sometime in 2022, they'll probably get it before Disney Plus does.
Probably, seeing as currently Spider-Man and Homecoming and Far From Home are not a part of the Disney Plus bundle.
Right. That's key.
Because those are technically Sony produced films.
Right. Sony still
even
has
though they're under the Marvel banner.
Yeah. Distribution rights still matter, believe it or not, in a world where it seems like it's Wild West out there. In some cases, this one being one, they still do matter.
Right, which means internationally, Disney Plus could still see those Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
But in the US rights, they're going to Netflix. Yeah. However, like I said, that Spider-Man film does come out December 2021. Doesn't hit that 2022 slate. So I'd say the next Spider-Man or Spider-Verse movie, animated Spider-Man movie,
that might be what
would be going to Netflix for sure.
That's smart. I'm sure that's probably Netflix probably loves that, because the first one has been on Netflix for a while and has been doing probably pretty well for them, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie to have on there. Speaking of, I just wanted to mention while we're talking about Sony and Netflix, if you're a fan of Spider-Verse, their animated studio's next film is going to be a Netflix premiere, and at the end of this month. I believe it's called The Mitchells versus the Machines. It's got a big cast attached. It's got what you expect from that studio. Like, just seems like a fun movie. So I'm excited to watch that when it comes out.
Yes. Unfortunately, that wasn't the original title of the film.
I heard there was some sort of back and forth there.
Back in 2019, when the first trailer came out, the movie was called Connected.
Right.
Same cast. I believe the script got reworked because this new trailer looks completely different from the old one. I mean, there are still some similar elements, but they're definitely hitting more on the machines part.
Yeah, animation Twitter seems to be very excited about this thing, and I trust those creators. So I'm excited to see what they do.
Danny McBride is the lead dad in that film.
Yeah.
So that's some big comedy chops right there.
Look forward to that one. But in the meantime, if you want to see movies in theaters and you live near the ArcLight in Los Angeles, well, I got bad news for you. Pacific Theaters.
Womp womp.
Yeah. Pacific Theaters, which operates 300 screens in California, said Monday it will not be reopening. They also operate the multiplexes at the Grove and the Americana shopping malls in the LA County or LA area. LA County recently expanded capacity for indoor moviegoing to 50%, but many of those smaller chains have struggled to remain solvent the past year. The ArcLight Hollywood was the first in the chain to open in 2002, featuring the then novel concept of reserved seating and ushers who introduced each showing. One of the biggest losses for movie fans, though, is the historic Cinerama Dome. The concrete geodesic dome on Sunset Boulevard is an official historic monument and a tourist attraction and of itself, featured in movies like Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and occasionally decorated for higher profile premieres. So the guess here is that whoever takes over, if that building is bought by, say, I saw a Twitter theory going around, say, Netflix, since they're nearby, could also own the Cinerama Dome and do whatever they want with it.
People were quick to point Netflix in there because one, their new building that they're moving into is literally next door to it.
Yes.
But two, because they also purchased the Egyptian theater, which they renovated and will be showing their own movies there as well. That, hey, Netflix is right door. Netflix is looking to get into a easy way of
Yeah.
making sure their films qualify for Oscar season, it
Right.
makes sense.
It makes sense.
That's where the theory comes from. No word from Netflix
No.
themselves, nothing from them. It's just people on Twitter saying, hey, this is convenient, isn't it? Why don't they just do it?
Because
Instead
they
of Netflix
know.
coming out and saying, we're interested. No,
Yeah.
it's just people online saying they should do it.
But here's the thing: is if they make their interest public, then you're going to have those campaigns starting where people start complaining that it's them and try to get somebody else to buy it. Or right now, there's a campaign to resurrect ArcLight itself and try to get the place reopened. So
Yes, I've also seen campaigns to get Quentin Tarantino to purchase it, or at least the Cineramic Dome itself,
yeah.
as well as Brad Pitt and his Plan B company to purchase it as well.
So we'll keep an eye on this one, see how it pans out. Chances are there will be some buyer at some point because something like this just doesn't rot away. Somebody will purchase this building. I guarantee it.
Yes, much like the Amoeba building, which we talked about when it closed,
Yeah.
the building itself will be purchased and will be renovated.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
Right. Something will happen with it.
It's just the occupant of it will change.
Right. All right. That'll do it for movie news. Did you watch any new movies this week?
Like theatrical length?
Yes,
No.
that's what a movie is. At least that's how we differentiate it from the television category here. Yes.
No, I did not.
No theatrical shorts, no documentary films.
No, because as we'll get right into, my entire weekend was filled with one event spread over 2 nights.
Yeah, I don't understand how you have the stamina for this every year. But yes, let's go into the sports corner, which is how we always start the television section of the show. Let's talk about sports first before we talk about
entertainment.
Sports. Yeah, sports entertainment. And WrestleMania. Every year there is a WrestleMania. This year was no different. There were fans supposedly wearing masks sometimes. It seemed a little loosey-goosey over there.
Very loosey-goosey.
And yeah, I heard all sorts of wild bananas stuff about this year's WrestleMania. I heard Bad Bunny is actually pretty good at wrestling. Yeah. I heard that there was nobody went into the shadow realm this time, unlike last year. So how was both nights of WrestleMania for you?
Well, I was able to finish a Costco personal sized pizza during WrestleMania. So it was fun. Some historic events happened, including the main event of night one, featuring 2 African American females battling for the belt in what ended up being an instant classic of a match. Night 2 had a little bit more of the SmackDown, kind of the more high profile, because WrestleMania is usually on Sundays, with featuring a 3-way match for the title, in which Roman Reigns, unfortunately, more or less, pinned both men at the same time, because wrestling, and retained his title. Going into both nights, I figured they would just retain the titles from last year, because there were no crowds last year. And they still went ahead with the 2-night event, because last year it was supposed to be in Tampa for 2 nights. Got pushed to this year, Tampa for 2 nights. So I figured, watching it, the wrestlers and the fans didn't get their proper celebrations last year with the fans. So this year, they're just going to get it this year. Wasn't the case. A lot of surprises. A lot of different events happening. Like you said, Bad Bunny showed up and appears to be not just a fan of wrestling, but can wrestle.
Yeah.
Kind of stole night one up until the very end, because that's all people were talking about.
Yeah, and kind of stole the hearts of the internet too. Like it was pretty much dominating the conversation for a while.
Yep. There was a Nigerian drum fight, which was hilarious.
Okay.
And overall, I watch it because it is excellent production. TV production, entertainment production. The overall night is a really well-produced event. That being said, that wasn't without its own hiccups. including starting late from the rain and having a couple wrestlers fall because of it.
Yeah.
Ground is slippery when wet.
Turns out.
So caution. I've heard that before. But overall, fun night. But WrestleMania also is the end cap for the season. So
yeah.
New season begins.
And here we go again.
Yep. As we make our way through a new wrestling season where it will end up in Dallas, Texas for the next WrestleMania event next year.
All right. So an enjoyable WrestleMania was had by all. And that was the first one on Peacock. So if you're a Peacock subscriber, it looks like they've archived both nights for you if you want to relive the magic.
Yes, wrestling. And this also does mark the start of WrestleMania on Peacock. I mean, technically it was on the first, but since WrestleMania was the first big event available on Peacock,
it just so
all streaming will officially be pushed there now.
Right. I bet they're happy that they timed it that way.
I mean, financial year, they purposely timed it that way.
Yeah.
Also, for programming note, NXT, the subsidiary of the WWE, officially moved from Wednesday nights to Tuesday nights on USA Network. Raw is still on Monday and SmackDown is still on Friday. I believe SmackDown is still on Fox. I've yet to see otherwise noted, but could change.
Yeah, I mean, with the rights being all over the place at this point, anything could change. So yeah, if you're a wrestling fan, we'll, I guess, keep you up to date. I don't know. I don't really feel like we should like dedicate so much time to like programming notes, but
no, but I mean,
we're not a TV guide.
This is as much wrestling as we talk about on this podcast on a weekly basis.
Yeah, you're right. Unless
on a yearly
wild
basis
happens.
at that.
Yeah.
Just the big event WrestleMania.
Yeah. But if you're paying attention to the rest of the sports world, it was a pretty interesting week otherwise as well. We have a winner for this year's The Masters golf tournament.
And it wasn't Justin Rose.
It was Hideki Matsuyama of Japan. He has become the first Asian-born winner of the Masters. So congratulations.
Yes. Justin Rose got out to a hot start of -6 on the first day and then crapped it all up.
As happens in professional golf is what I've noticed.
Oh, yes. Matsuyama kind of made it interesting towards the end, about hole 15, where he bogeyed a hole. But then again, so did Dustin Johnson and other people. So his lead was pretty secure. He won the Masters with a -11 throughout the weekend. Clearly, they made the course harder, or at least tried to make it harder with hole placement. As if you remember last year, Dustin Johnson won the event at -21 strokes under par for the weekend.
That's a big difference.
They definitely wanted to. I mean, that's usually the case. If one year someone goes off and has a really good year, the next year everyone's going to struggle. They just kind of make it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, did you watch any of that? Was it a good round?
Yeah, a very good round. Very exciting.
Cool.
Yep. Overall, I mean, I watched a lot of it, and I wasn't what was on during the day. My eyes terrible.
I'd watch. Just thinking about that golf, and your eyes are just adjusting.
Well, because I'd watch golf during the day, and then WrestleMania was at night.
Yeah, that really screw up your eyes. Recipe for disaster, right there.
Definite whiplash.
Yes. All right. Speaking of whiplash, let's stop talking about golf and talk about baseball. But before we go into the pros, though, let's talk about college baseball for a quick moment here. You have a bit here about University of Texas, North Texas pitcher Hope Trautwein. Am I pronouncing Trautwein correct?
I believe it's Trautwein.
Trautwein? Okay.
She. Well,
you didn't help me by not saying what sport it was.
I thought Hope would give it away, but I guess not.
Sports, throw out the name book because every sport has like some wild names in it. So you cannot give me the name Hope and that make me assume it's that person's gender. Okay, fine. So we're talking about softball was my guess here. And we're talking about a woman named
Yes.
Hope Troutbean. Thank you for
Yes.
giving me context clues. But an impressive stat line here. 7 innings pitched, no hits, no runs, no balls, 21 strikeouts.
Note that 7 innings pitched for a softball game is a complete game. They only play 7 innings. So
yeah,
she faced 21 batters. She struck out all 21 batters.
That's very impressive.
Quite an impossible feat at any level, but damn, does that just sound good. 21 Ks.
That's wild. I don't know if that's possible, but apparently it is because she did it. So
Right.
congratulations.
Unlike MLB, which is pitching a perfect game, which is a no-hitter,
mm-hmm.
you can have hits and like the infield help you out or pop flies.
Right.
But strikeouts,
that's another level right there. Yep. Yeah, with no defensive help. Goes to show you there's some talent happening in softball.
There's talent everywhere.
Meanwhile, talent also showed up in the pro leagues this week with the Padres pitcher Joe Musgrove pitching the first ever no-hitter for the franchise.
Considering the franchise has been around for 70 years.
Yeah, it's old. It's old.
To never have a no-hitter.
They were due, I guess.
They were due. All right, now everyone fiercely Google what team still does not have a no-hitter franchise.
I don't know actually what the answer to that is, but
I don't know, but I feel like any recent team, possibly.
Yeah,
like the Tampa Bay Blue Jays.
Tampa Bay Blue, yes, the Tampa Bay Blue Jays. Hey, they might go back to Buffalo. Who knows?
They just can't go back to Toronto.
Not yet, at least. Trapped North America. Well, I mean, Canada's North America, but trapped in the United States.
Yes.
As we all are. Yeah, those are the big stories. Anything else in sports that you want to mention before we move on?
No, I believe that's all for sports. Next week, I'll bring it up again next week, but the NFL draft is next week, next Thursday, the 22nd, which means that all of the rest of this week and all of next week, prepare to see a lot of free agency be swapped up and picks be settled on, as people will talk about who will be the overall second pick to Trevor Lawrence's first pick.
Yes, because as you said a couple weeks ago, that's a given, more or less.
More or less, college Mr. COVID, Trevor Lawrence will be headed to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, we'll find out when it happens. In the meantime, let's talk about some television news. These were late ads. I saw you furiously typing these in at like 4:10. So let's get this late breaking news.
Late breaking news.
First up in the late breaking news here takes us to CBS, specifically CBS Stations President Peter Dunn and Senior VP of News David Friend. They were placed on administrative leave back in January following accusations of alleged racist, homophobic, and sexist behavior. Now it has officially been announced by CBS that they are not returning to the company.
And by now, I mean literally hours ago.
Yeah, hours ago. Like I said, late breaking news. I wasn't lying.
Yep.
Quote, "We have determined that they are not returning to their positions and will be leaving the company. I want to be very clear that the external investigation is not over and will continue." That is President and CEO of CBS Entertainment Group, George Cheeks. Well, all these names are great. Peter Dunn, David Friend, and George Cheeks. Can't make this up. You can't write this. In a memo to the company, the investigation started in Philadelphia-owned station where they, quote, cultivated a hostile work environment that included bullying female managers and blocking efforts to hire and retain Black journalists. That's a yikes.
Yeah.
was neither Peter Dunn's or David Friend's first incident, though, as a 2019 internal investigation had revealed similar practices and had addressed the situation with senior management. But of course, if you know how these things usually work out, that means that it was tidily swept under the rug, so they didn't have to talk about it anymore. So I'm glad that this has now gone to a bigger level now where corporate got involved and gave them the boot.
Right. This is 2019 investigation that they did, which means that it was published in 2019, probably started earlier than that.
Oh yeah, I would imagine.
And revealed that, hey, we do have some kind of toxic work environment. Let's do some management training, say we did this, and everyone be better going forward. And guess who didn't get that memo?
Nope. So yeah, but due diligence was done on the corporate level at least, so we have that. So at least they're ousted, and hopefully some of that stuff will be cleaned up. But if I know anything about these things, it's usually not only is the problem usually up top, it usually trickles down. And so who knows whether this is a quick solution or not? Time will tell. We'll see.
Right, and this is also at your local station. I'd say local station because it's mainly the East Coast stations of Philadelphia, New York, DC, Baltimore area, and I think it technically trickles down over to Chicago, Pittsburgh, big cities here. So yeah,
all the way down.
All the way down.
Anyway, glad they're getting their comeuppance. Always good to see every once in a while something like that happening. We now move to a different kind of comeuppance, the good kind, I guess you could say. Some earned success.
Yeah, some bad news, good news here.
Yeah, I guess you could say
bad news being the CBS, and this actually being the good news.
Some good news. Well, good news specifically if you're Lauren Ash, if that name sounds familiar. They're an actor on Superstore, and she's choosing to stay with NBC Universal after signing an overall deal that includes a commitment for her to write her own pilot, comedy pilot to be specific. The deal includes cross-platform networks, I skipped a line, and streaming projects for NBC, Bravo, E, Oxygen, Sci-Fi, Universal Kids, USA, and Peacock. So basically everything under the NBC umbrella. Mm-hmm. This deal is similar to the one recently signed with Meghan Trainor, who is also developing a comedy for NBC. Lauren Ash already has writing credits, including Video on Trial, Facebook of Revelations, and Trashy Affair. Judging by the names of all those things, they sound like web stuff.
They are definitely web stuff.
You don't say.
No, but
so congrats.
Congratulations on continued employment with NBC. Excited to see what new comedies you can write.
Yeah, making deals.
Yeah, making deals. I did not see any production studio out of this. It was just straight to the writer or the comedian in this case.
But that could change.
It definitely could change. As we've seen everyone tries to put their own production company together.
It's happened. All right. That'll do it for TV news. We do have some thoughts, though. We watched a few things.
Yes.
Let's take advantage of this segue. Lauren Ash is, of course, on Superstore. You watched the finale of Superstore, this being the series finale. Now, I know we've had our ups and downs with this show, but did it stick a landing?
Yes and no.
That's exactly what I expected you to say. So good. You're on point with that one.
Yes. So Superstore ended. I think it was actually technically last month that it ended. I just finally got around to catching up with it.
Okay.
But it did the typical thing of you bring people back, you bring back the familiar faces for the last season, you wrap up all the storylines, and then you do and try and give a soft farewell to everybody and kind of have that whole hunky-dory sitcom, everything turns out for the better. Except it kind of doesn't. Mm-hmm. So, quick spoiler or quick overview. Superstore revolves around a Walmart/Costco-esque giant, I'll say it, superstore.
Sure, yeah. There's a reason why it's called that. Turns out.
Set in the Midwest, where the cast of characters go about their everyday lives, dealing with different situations, coming up in a retail environment. Simple concept that is Went through six seasons, surprisingly,
Yeah.
but it's been a solid hit. It doesn't try to do too much. It stays in its lane, and as we've seen with comedies that run that long, they appeal to the lowest common denominator. A lot of physical gags, some highbrow humor, but for the most part, a lot of it is, hey, if I was working in retail, that's the kind of stuff I would expect. Or I've seen some of that stuff on TikTok, on YouTube. I've read about this stuff. Clearly, they're pulling from everyday ads. And then they kind of every now and then steer into the bigger issues where they treat it like Amazon coming in on their territory of online retails. So, long story short, the employees get pushed out by big box store Amazon,
Yeah.
more or less, and they have to shutter their store, which, makes for a good ending. Like, the store's closing, so the series is closing. It kind of lines up, kind of makes for a good sense. But then it loses me with the hunky dory, everything turns out fine because
Right.
we're all still friends even after we don't work together.
Because that is not the reality of anyone's experience. We've known a handful of people who worked at similar kind of big box retailers before, and it seems like all the really like connections that they have with people they worked with is, oh, I ran into so and so. I used to work with them at the Best Buy, and we said something about like, hey, remember when this happened, and then never talked to each other again.
Yep.
Also, I'd imagine that people who are actually affected by this closure of something like this are probably struggling for a while before they can get back on their feet.
Yeah,
And
it
I'm
doesn't
guessing
quite
that
go into
this
that.
doesn't go there.
No, it also can't because one, it's a half hour. Two,
Yeah.
it's a comedy. So
Right.
you can't say, oh, here's this existential dread of the store closing and now everyone has to go find new jobs.
Yeah, that'd be like a Seinfeld-esque
Turn
series
around and
finale. Like,
or turn around and just work for the people who tore the job out from you.
right.
But it
I
does
see why they had to do what they had to do.
it does give the false hope that, oh, they all stayed friends even after the store closed, and clearly nobody moved around, and they all were a tight knit group of community of a family in a superstore, even though realistically, not how that happens.
Yeah, but it's television, so television brains on, I guess,
Yep.
is what I would say for this one. So yeah, overall, what do you think the legacy of the show is going to be? Do you think it's just like a really easy, like moderate hit that's just going to go like be one of those like, hey, remember Superstore in like 15 years? Or do you think people liked it more than I'm giving it credit for?
I think it had a consistent following more than you give it credit for. I think it was more topical because, I mean, this past year it dealt directly with
Yeah,
retail and COVID. It
with
tried to stay
COVID.
on topic, especially with big internet, Amazon taking over, and people can just buy stuff online instead of going into retail. It definitely tried to stay on topic for this year. So or for these past decade, I'd say.
Mm.
So it does serve as like a good time capsule. Not sure if you'll get very many replays. So you give and you take.
Yeah. Okay, so
I
not
think
a
more take than give,
disaster,
though.
not a disaster, but like also nothing to be like, oh, this is a great thing. Just kind of in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
like like the ending didn't teary eye me, even though I watched the whole thing. Well, binged most of it, but if you can't really hit that kind of like
Yeah.
level, it's the level of investment was very low to begin with.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Do you want to talk about the other thing you watched?
Yeah, because speaking of low investments, oh boy.
Right. So
So
tell me what the
I
secret is
the secret
of
is that I had
Sulphur
been secretly been
Springs.
watching this from the beginning since
Well,
it premiered, but I didn't talk about it, didn't bring it up because I didn't
so
realize
what
that was
is
a
it?
series.
What is the secret of Sulphur Springs?
The secret of Sulphur Springs is that it could never end.
Okay.
So it's Back to the Future in TV form,
Okay.
meaning that kids,
Kids.
and I say that with like old 12, 14-year-olds, kids.
Stranger Things style. Okay, I
Yeah,
follow.
Stranger Things style, stumble upon a bunker in an old abandoned, supposedly haunted hotel,
So it's the Goonies.
which a family recently moved into.
So it's the okay, it's not the Goonies anymore, but
Like I said, it pulls from like everywhere.
yeah.
So a family from Chicago recently moves into this southern hotel on a plantation, and one of the kids, a couple of the kids, one of the kids, along with a new friend from school, discover a portal in the basement, or it's a hatch, really. A
So it's
hatch
the
that when you
Goonies
go
again.
through, time travels you back 30 years. Specifically
Okay.
30 years to when his dad went to camp at said hotel so he could be friends with him
Okay.
and uncover the
What?
mystery of the mysterious running ghost girl
Weird.
who
Okay.
disappeared 30 years ago to the day.
Convenient.
Super convenient. And that's
Well,
what the secret is.
okay. Is this portal, this time travel portal that sends you back to a very pivotal moment in your father's history. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. And you try and somehow like the two main families are interconnected because both of the parents went to this specific camp at the hotel 30 years ago
Of course.
and just now are dealing with the consequences from their kids who are conveniently interfering with it now.
Of course.
Uh, don't ask too many questions about how this works.
I was going to, but okay.
And so I should say this is Disney Channel. I think
Yeah,
it's on Disney Channel.
that sounds right.
Disney Plus series. And it's exactly what you think it is. It pulls from typical time travel tropes where, oh, we can't really mess up the past. Oh, but what if we do mess up the past? Can we fix the past to change the future? Or
Yeah.
is it all written in stone and the grandfather paradox is not a thing?
But it's all very, I don't want to say neutered, but it's probably all very like simplified because it is for kids.
Yes, it's very simplified, it's very lighthearted, it's very kid friendly.
Right.
Not a whole lot for adults to get into. That being said, I did watch the whole series.
Well, I mean, we had stuff like The Secret of Alex Mack back in the day. So this is essentially the same thing, right? I mean, like a light sci-fi show for kids.
Yeah. And much like The Secret of Alex Mack and much like Shake
Is that
It
what that
Up
was
and
called?
much like those old Disney shows,
Yeah.
eventually one of these kids will become a star. And I can see that
Yeah.
in a couple of it.
I can have
So it right now it's serving as like a hey, watch this because they're
Yeah.
going to be big someday.
Yeah.
Because Disney Channel usually has a good eye for that, especially the
Just
casting.
yeah, just wait. In November, we'll be talking about the new #1 single is from like the star of this thing, Olivia Rodrigo style, just out of nowhere.
Probably like, oh, where'd this person come from? Oh, they were on this show from
Of
Disney Channel.
course they were.
Right. Who then went on and did this thing and now they're this thing.
Yeah.
Like Ariana Grande and Zendaya and Zac Efron and all these Disney star characters, kids shows. It does end on a cliffhanger. So expect possible second season. I mean, when you're dealing with time travel and kids, there's really no end to it because the kids can age up with it and continue to time travel and deal with the secrets of Sulphur Springs. Ooh.
Even though knowing the premise, you know, the secret. But
I mean, the secret is that there's time travel, but the secret is that the parents obviously being parents, don't tell their kids everything because they're not grown up or ready for it. So
Yeah, probably for good reason.
for
I don't
good
want my
reason.
kid going into a portal and time traveling without me. I mean, technically, I guess I'm there because I meet my kid, but I don't know it's him.
Right.
So, yeah, weird. Anyway, anything else you want to talk about that you watched? Anything?
Not in TV really.
Well, that's the section we're in. So,
I'm sorry. Like I said, I mainly watched wrestling and golf and had my personal pizza.
okay. Well, I did not have personal pizza, but I did watch something new, brand spanking new as of last week. Now I know the answer to this because you've played the Kingdom Hearts games, but are you familiar with the original DS game, The World Ends with You?
Yes, very musically challenged.
So it's having a little bit of a renaissance. It looks like Square Enix is trying to bring this thing back. Not only was a sequel announced about a year ago, it has a new release date. We'll get to that in the video game section. But they also, out of nowhere, nearly 15 years after the original game's release, it's finally getting an anime adaptation.
Weird.
Yeah, it's called The World Ends with You, the animation, because of course it's called that.
I'm shocked. It'd be that
And
simple.
Funimation is doing this. It's a simulcast dub, so it's premiering in Japan at the same time it is here. But if you're a Hulu subscriber, you can also watch it via Hulu as well. It's going to be on both Funimation and Hulu. So only the first episode's premiered so far. I gave it a watch. I played the DS game way back when that originally came out, 06, 07, give or take. And yeah, it's pretty much just a straight up adaptation of the events of that game. So if you played that game, a lot of this will be immediately familiar to you. Same characters, same setting, exact same plot events, more or less. From what I understand from some leaks that got out, is some character motivations change, but that hasn't happened quite yet because the first episode only has so much coverage. But everything immediately came rushing back to me from the original game when I was watching this thing. It's really cool animation style. It's a hybrid of traditional and computer generated imagery. So every once in a while during a fight scene, a character will turn into CG or an enemy will for, I guess, more economic animation. But otherwise, it's got a really cool stylized look that evokes that of the original game. So yeah, if you're a fan of the game, check it out. I mean, it seems like it's a really well-made adaptation so far, and we're only one episode in. Chances are, like most of these anime series, we'll probably see 12, if I have to guess. Usually that's a season these days.
Yeah.
About 8 to 12. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. And yeah, it makes me a little interested in the sequel that's coming very, very soon. So it's cool.
So this isn't technically TV news related, but rather future TV programming.
Okay.
As the Attack on Titan comic book officially wrapped up this past weekend, and people were pissed.
As they
Depending on which
are.
side you landed on. Because as we know, nobody can actually nail a good ending anymore, apparently. People will be divided either which way. It's kind of impossible now to meet fan expectations.
Can't make everybody happy.
And make everyone happy and have a satisfying conclusion. That being said, much like with Game of Thrones, expect viewership for the animation or for the anime to start dropping off when it returns later this year. I believe Netflix has the deal for it.
I have no idea.
It might also appear on Funimation and the no longer Crunchyroll as that gets dissolved.
That's still not official. Actually, just a little follow-up to that. I read just last week that that's still in litigation.
Okay.
The Sony purchase of Crunchyroll. So that hasn't gone through yet. So that's why the brands are still separate. So yeah, I don't know when that's going to happen.
So eventually. Possibly.
Unless they give it a big kibosh, which could happen.
I mean,
I think there's concerns about it being an antitrust thing. Yeah.
Yep.
I think they're concerned that if kind of they're the only games in town, so both of them are owned by Sony, yeah, some questions have to get answered. Yep. So we'll figure that out. But yeah, we'll keep you, the listener / viewer, updated when that happens. In
And
the meantime,
anything else in
that's all I
TV?
watched. So if you're good, I'm good, which means we can move on to cancellations and renewals.
All right. What am I no longer watching?
You're no longer watching Don't on ABC. Not that I think you were,
So
but
don't watch Don't,
don't watch
or
Don't because
can't
it's
watch Don't.
you can't watch Don't. Turns out because Don't has been canceled by ABC after just one season of Don't.
I'm
So
sorry,
Don't.
Adam Scott.
They said Don't to Don't. Turns out. Meanwhile, on ABC, they've renewed pretty much everything else. The Hustler, second season. The Chase, a second season once they resolved the writers issue that they were having.
Yes.
We didn't even talk about this on this. I don't know how this passed your TV news for the last month, but it was all over my Twitter feed. People
We did
talking
talk
about.
about it.
Did we talk about it?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think we did, and then we didn't follow up.
We didn't follow up.
Yeah.
We talked about how the writers walked out
Right.
with the last production for it.
Well, anyway, the network still believes in it because they renewed it. Card Sharks will get a fourth season. Press Your Luck will get a fourth season. And To Tell the Truth, we'll get a fifth season, meaning look forward to more game shows on ABC because there's literally nothing else to show. Thank you, COVID.
Game shows are quick and easy to produce.
Yep, turns out. Meanwhile, CBS's reboot of MacGyver has been canceled after 5 seasons. Yes, believe it or not, that incarnation of MacGyver lasted for 5 seasons. Netflix, meanwhile, is bringing back internet favorite Bridgerton for an additional 2 seasons. That'll put it at the 4-season count, which you know what that means, Netflix fans. That'll be it.
Probably. But also, there's no Reggae Jean
right.
returning to any of these seasons. I mean, maybe the fourth one, but currently not in the second one, to much of everyone's dismay.
Yeah. The BBC. Yes, that BBC.
Yep.
Bringing back Call the Midwife for another 2 seasons. That'll bring it to 13 seasons of Call the Midwife. Friend of the show, Christy, is a big fan of Call the Midwife, so I'll
Only
have to let
13?
her know.
Where's the time gone?
Yeah, Call the Midwife and find out. And then lastly, in cancellations and renewals, Tough as Nails on CBS will get 2 additional seasons. That'll also put that up at 4 seasons of Tough as Nails.
That's because we can't travel around the world yet.
Yeah.
In The Amazing Race.
That's true. You got to have this slightly less amazing race.
Yes. The construction pipe building competition, Tough as Nails.
Very different. And now we have a lot of deaths to get through this week. Some rough ones, some minor ones, some confusing ones. So let's start at the top here. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. 99, of course. He was old. He definitely looked it. I don't need to
a
tell
week
you.
Before his 100th birthday.
Yeah. I mean, I don't need to tell you anything about Prince Philip. You know, at this point.
Yes, the prince married to the queen.
Right. We knew this was going to happen at some point. No surprises here. It seems like unless you're like a diehard for the royals, no one really cares. Let's move on.
From what I'm going to steal this line from Twitter. It was, if you knew nothing about Prince Philip, you're probably sad. If you knew anything about Prince Philip, you're probably not.
Yeah, I saw that too. But one that all of us are sad about, though, on the flip side, was the one we talked about kind of the last days of last week, which of course was rapper DMX. He did eventually pass away in the hospital, age 50. This was due to the heart attack he endured. Of course, you know who DMX is. You have some singles up here, but I don't need to tell you. He was the guy that said up in here, you know, DMX. He growled like a dog sometimes, you know, DMX, you know. Rough one for the music community, definitely the rap community. Got legendary rap career, had his ups and downs, certainly had his brushes with the law, was in prison a few times. But still, definitely an impact on the industry and definitely one of those rappers' favorite rappers kind of guys, for sure, where it's like, oh, your favorite rapper loves DMX kind of thing, and was in it for a long time. He just had a versus battle with Snoop Dogg last year. Like, he kept going. Like, there was no sign of stopping for DMX, and yet here we are. So, R.I.P.
Yep, big one. That's big loss.
Meanwhile, in the world of music, Bob Porter, age 80, an American Hall of Fame record producer, discographer, and broadcaster. So we also had in the world of Hollywood, Joseph Saravo, age 66, an actor who was in The Sopranos, American Crime Story, Oslo, as well as others.
He's one of, that guy, actor.
Yeah, for sure. Bobby Leonard, age 88, a Hall of Fame basketball player, played for the Lakers and the Washington Wizards back in the day.
He was also a coach for the Pacers more recently, obviously.
And then get your circa 2008 jokes ready, because Bernie Madoff, age 82.
Yes,
of course,
that Madoff.
That Madoff, who made off with all your money. Everybody's heard that joke for 5 billion times over the last 10 years. Died in...
I guess that makes it the last time we can use that joke now?
I guess so. He died in prison, where he was basically going to be for the rest of his life. Turns out, yes, that turned out to be true. All right.
So if he comes back somehow, does that mean he has served his life in prison?
If zombie Bernie Madoff shows up, then yes, I guess.
It'd be zombie Madoff at that point.
Zombie Madoff. Okay. Thank you. I have a picture now to look for for the podcast website post. All right, let's flip the script here. Let's talk about music. So I hand this over to you.
And we always start music with the Billboard, and we start the Billboard with the Hot 100. And oh boy, is it hot, because you got to leave the door open. With Leave the Door Open by Silk Sonic, your number one single this week, knocking off last week's number one down to number two, Montero, Call Me By Your Name by Lil Nas X. At 3, Peaches by Justin Bieber, featuring Daniel Caesar and Giveon. 4, Up by Cardi B. And rounding out the top 5, that corner, Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo. I swear I made that joke last week and the week before that.
A note about Olivia Rodrigo. Of course, she premiered a new single last week called Deja Vu.
Yes.
It unfortunately missed the top 5 by 3. It debuted at number 8 this week. So it didn't quite make the debut that she probably wanted it to. I'm personally kind of surprised by that, but it just goes to show you that the strength of Leave the Door Open is way stronger than I imagined it was going to be. People love Bruno Mars.
Right, yeah, that's what Silk Sonic is.
That's what Silk Sonic is, just a refresher.
Yep, if you're a refresher from the Grammys, that's what that is.
That's what that is. 70s ass soul band. Anyway.
As for your albums chart, your Billboard 200 at number 1, and probably pissing off a lot of fans, depending on which side you land on.
Yeah.
Justice by Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Repeating at number 1, which means the album I had picked as knocking it down lands at the number 2 slot. Yes. Dancing with the Devil, The Art of Starting Over by Demi Lovato.
Quick note, Justice wasn't even number 1 last week. It debuted at number 2. Your number 1 last week was the number 3 this week. The Rod Wave record.
That's right. Soulfly by Rod Wave. At number 4, Dangerous, the double album by Morgan Wallen. Still hanging around the top 5. Maybe for the last week. But rounding out your top 5, Destined to Win by Lil J. To J.
I think it's probably pronounced TJ.
To J.
To J.
Lil To J. If you didn't like any of those albums, we have new releases.
All right, what am I listening to this week?
I don't know what you're listening to, but here are the new releases.
Here they are.
Never the Right Time by Andy Stott. Pulp by Born Ruffians, that is all capital for Pulp. The Battle at Garden's Gate by Greta Van Fleet.
Ugh.
Californian Soil by London Grammar.
That's confusing.
Fading Graffiti by Spencer Krug. Ultra Pop, all caps, by The Armed. McCartney 3, Imagined by Paul McCartney. Yes, that Paul McCartney.
This, I believe, is a remix thing where he's brought in other artists to remix the songs off of Paul McCartney 3, the record he released earlier in the year.
So is this a reimagined
Yes, it's
version?
a 3 imagined version. See what he did there? Huh?
Yes. Paul McCartney 3 Imagined.
Yeah.
We also have Let the Bad Times Roll by The Offspring. Yes, that Offspring.
I feel like they're running out of names for their records.
I mean, they already named an album The Offspring, so
Can't
can't really go anywhere from there.
go anywhere.
And lastly, album I'll be listening to, we'll report next week on it. Heart by Eric Church. Note that this is not the only album he will be releasing, as he will also be releasing Soul by Eric Church.
It's just 2 albums worth of him playing Heart and Soul on the piano. Is that what this is?
Close. So the Heart album and the Soul album are technically double record albums and will be available on streaming.
I see.
He is releasing a 3rd album as well, Ampersand.
Huh?
Thus completing Heart and Soul.
And Soul.
Yes. However, Ampersand, as I'm going to be calling it, will not be available on streaming.
Okay. Weird choice.
Ampersand will be a record-only release.
Now, when you say that, do you mean only vinyl? Not even on CD? Okay.
Yes, only vinyl release from his website for what's essentially bonus tracks.
Okay. Well, if you like Heart and you like Soul, then go get a copy of And
Ampersand. It's the same thing. I believe Heart is this week, Soul is next week, and then in between that, he's shipping Ampersand.
Got it.
Or maybe it's just Heart and Soul all together. I forget which one was which, but
they go hand in hand.
Essentially, it's 3 albums worth of Eric Church.
That's a lot of Eric Church.
Yep. Which means my copy of it should be arriving sometime soon.
Good to know.
All right. Let's get into some music news, shall we?
Let's.
So, we were talking about the ArcLight Theater shutting down and closing its doors. Well, how about we skip the Prince and go to live venues, as Hollywood Bowl and I guess other venues will be reopening, as the most iconic performance venue in the country is officially back in business soon. God and 4th, 5th, and like 6th waves of the coronavirus kind of pending. The Hollywood Bowl and its sister amphitheater, the Ford, are both set to reopen for nearly full summer seasons beginning in July, said by the Los Angeles Philharmonic Organization, announced this morning. Programming and other details won't be announced until May 11th for the Bowl and May 25th for the Ford, as the LA Philharmonic is suddenly having to pivot from more limited plans that were coming together before California Governor Gavin Newsom announced on Tuesday that the state's economy should fully reopen in mid-June. Chad Smith, the LA Phil's CEO, and David C. Bonet, Chief Executive Officer Chair, says that bookings and staffing's plans are very much quickly changing and a work in progress. But optimism for a possible return to full capacity has become possible this week. Even if they're prepared for the sands to shift again, before the concert scheduled is to be released May 11th. Now, this does go hand in hand with what was what had planned with sporting events and venues being allowed to open starting April 1st. That was just for the month of April. We will get more information of capacity limits at the end of April as we go into May 1st, and then again going into June.
Yeah.
And then the plan is hopefully, as more people get vaccinated around the country, that July should open up to full capacity. Whether or not people will go to said full capacity is another thing, but at least the venues will be open and artists can once again perform.
Yeah. So I concluded the story not necessarily because of the Hollywood Bowl in particular. I used it kind of as like a sign of a greater trend that's happened this week, which is everything's like all the announcements for summer and fall tours are starting to trickle out. You see a lot of artists now making commitments, which is something that they weren't ready to do at the beginning of the year. I saw several tours pop up in September, October, November, even going into spring of next year. So it's starting to slowly start up again. So if you're brave and you think that it's going to be good timing for you, and you think we're going to be on the other side of it, it seems like a lot of people are ready to buy tickets. So they're out there. Events are happening, being scheduled, but use discretion. And yes, as you mentioned, it's going to change on a monthly basis. So we're not necessarily going to know 100% if even a show in September is going to happen right now. So
right, and just because you may be fully vaccinated doesn't mean that the random person you're standing next to got vaccinated.
Right, you don't know.
You don't know, especially going to a concert where people
yeah,
who want to go to those first opening concerts maybe not as liberal as you might think.
I mean, it depends on the concert you go.
Yes.
But yeah, you never know what you're going to get is basically when you're going out into a big crowd. It's why the CDC doesn't recommend it yet. So that's basically what I would say is keep an eye on regulations, both state, local, and national and global. Keep an eye on what professionals are saying and just make your own decisions based on that information. But stay educated about it, stay aware, because this stuff is going to start opening, but it's up to you to decide whether you think it's a smart idea to go.
Right, and it's up to you to stay educated on these trusted websites like the CDC.
Yes. Yeah. And it's
not
up to
from
you.
The untrusted, unverified friend from Facebook, which you added 3 months ago.
Yeah. And it's up to you to stay educated about the Media Boat podcast, which is why we're here.
Yep. And only you can prevent forest fires. Wait,
I was thinking that too, but I was like, it's okay.
Hey, I'm here to kill the jokes into the ground.
I'll give that over to you. I'll toss it.
Give me that horse. I'll eat it. Speaking of eating and horses.
What?
Marshmallows.
Oh, I love marshmallows. Well, is a news story about marshmallows?
Yes. Marshmallow Peeps and Pepsi have combined to form
gross.
Peepsy.
Yeah, no, this is not about that. Also, that was so like 3 weeks ago.
Yes, that was Easter. What's the closest thing I had to a marshmallow joke?
Yeah, sorry. Tell me about Marshmello, the artist.
Yes. Marshmello, the artist, behind the hit Happier.
I picked the story. I picked the story just for you because it's one of your favorite things to cover on Media Boat Podcast.
Oh, yeah. Lawsuit claims. And more specifically with music, copyright lawsuit claims.
Yes. One of these.
Yes. As a judge has rejected a copyright lawsuit that claims that Marshmello's aforementioned hit Happier infringed on an earlier song. Arty, a Russian DJ, legal name Artem Stolarov, filed the suit in 2019, claiming that Marshmello's song ripped off the synthesizer melody from his 2014 remix of the song I Lived. Arty was represented by Richard Bush, the attorney who represented the family of Marvin Gaye in that famous Blurred Lines case, which kind of started the trend here on Media Boat Podcast.
Yeah.
In a ruling on Thursday, U.S. District Judge Philip S. Gutierrez held that Artie had given up ownership of the remix composition in his contract and therefore had no grounds to sue. One Republic released the original version of I Lived through Interscope Records. The label then brought Artie in to do a remix and used the label's standard remix agreement, which, under the deal, Artie was paid a flat fee upfront and gave up any royalties, and with that, any ownership to the song and anything
Yes.
used in it. So, should Interscope Records want to come after Marshmello, they may have a case. Except that I think Marshmello is officially under the Interscope record, if I'm not mistaken. I may be
I have
mistaken.
no idea what label Marshmello performs under. But regardless, this is just a weird one because it feels like it's just a one-off. It's like he already shot his shot and probably isn't going to make any headway with this. But it's another example of just like artists, you got to keep in mind music is always going to be iterative. Music is this art that just happens to, some people just have independent thought, and those things sometimes sound like other things. And yeah, to an extent, you can be litigious about it. The blurred lines thing made some sense, and that's why it's now established precedent. But the problem with that is that not every single case is going to follow that exact precedent. And this is a good example of, is it, does it matter if it's a remix? Apparently not. There's some legal gray areas with remixes. So keep that in mind before you get legal, before you spend those legal fees. And Artie is feeling it right now.
Well, not only that, but also know what contract you're signing,
That too.
Where you give up any royalties,
right?
And know that I'm just doing this for a one-off flat fee.
So yeah, interesting nonetheless. But yeah, definitely one of the more minor copyright cases that we talked about. But hey.
Yep. All right, so let's get into some thoughts, shall we?
Well, thought more specifically, just one thing this week, as far as I know.
Yep, and that is fits in the tantrums, because pick up that phone. I called it.
You talked about it last week, didn't you?
I talked about it 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Actually, 3 weeks ago. When did we talk about fits in the tantrums here?
I don't know.
Yeah, so that was last week. So 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about Head Up High fits in the tantrums.
Yeah.
And I said it's a fun pop album, but expect to see it everywhere in commercial play. And already it happened. I didn't mention it, but one of the songs on it, Zigzag, was played for Gonzaga during its lead up to the Final Four.
Yeah.
And then just this past weekend on WrestleMania, every single chance they get, if it wasn't the Weeknd song, it was the Fits in the Tantrums song, Head Up High
Fair
song.
Enough. I don't know.
So it happens so soon.
All I've been seeing is every time I watch an Angels game, they play something off that Evanescence record.
Yeah, the new one.
Yeah, so I don't know. But yeah.
I was like, I called it, and yet it happened so soon.
Yeah,
and yet
that was
I feel so proud for calling this, and yet they're just playing the hook, and it's catchy.
Sometimes you just know.
Sometimes you just know.
Speaking of knowing, what is the actual record we're talking about this week?
The actual record we're talking about this week is being strong, being brave, and standing up to the face of Scooter Braun. in a word, fearless.
Yeah. Taylor's version.
Okay, yeah, I have to parenthesize Taylor's version, I guess.
Taylor's version.
Because yes, Taylor Swift, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, officially, and we alluded to last week, officially, and I guess this was like a long time coming because we knew she was already doing this from back channels and then the deal and the process, and I'm just stalling. Taylor Swift officially releases Fearless, Taylor's version, the album, which included bonus tracks.
Yeah. So not only did it include the bonus tracks on the original Fearless Platinum Edition from back in 2010, it also included 6 unheard, unreleased from the vault, as she called them, tracks that were not on the original versions. And because of that, she was able to work with her more recent collaborators, Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff, for those, as well as a couple of duet partners. So yeah, those are the only new songs on the record. Otherwise, all of them are just re-recorded versions of existing Taylor Swift songs.
So how does it
what?
compare to the original?
Okay. All right. Thank you for unleashing the floodgates. I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
All
So
right. So we got some taste of some singles being released, and
right.
people were immediately trying to compare the two.
Okay. So here's my overall feeling about this thing. So going into this poll project, it was unclear about whether or not she was just going to do exact version, like copies of the original music, or whether she was going to use her stylistic changes over the year, production changes over the year, new outlook on life to change some of these compositions. Well, now that the thing's out, we know that it's the former, not the latter. She is pretty much just all the existing music here. She has tried to re-record to the exact, more or less, what they sounded like originally, to the point where she brought in original musicians to help her with the arrangements. She brought in the exact same duet partners in the case of a couple of the songs that have other people on them. And so, yeah, like she went very specific about about to make these versions of the songs very identical to the original versions. Not to say that there aren't slight differences. She's a better singer now. She's better trained, and she has a slightly lower register than she did with age. And so the song sounds slightly different just because of that. So also the production has gotten an upgrade here. I think the original Fearless, it was released at a time where a lot of music production was all highs all the time. It was the loudness wars, like it sounds like something from that era. This, everything is toned, balanced better. Everything sounds more modern, as you might imagine, even if it is the same instrumentation, more or less, which is cool. I like the idea of having better mixed, better mastered versions of these songs, and these is what those are. So if you're going in expecting a whole lot of differences, that's not what this is. This is basically like a new version of the existing Fearless record, which is fine considering that Fearless won Album of the Year. So can't really improve too much on it. But I think there are better versions. So that's good news for the avid Swifties who were hoping that this would be similar enough to the originals that they could completely replace them. As for the new songs, I've seen a lot of takes on the From the Vault songs here, refer to them as kind of missing links between the Fearless era and the Folklore era. And more or less, that's what you're getting here. You can definitely tell the Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff effect on him. In fact, the last track, Bye Bye Baby, I didn't even need to know that that was a Jack Antonoff track because as soon as I heard the drums kick in, I was like, oh, that's a Jack Antonoff drum. Like, I just know now. Like, it was like, oh, that's a Jack drum. I just can tell that's a thing that only he would do to that production of that song. And so I was like, okay, yeah, their handprints are all over this stuff. Overall, though, they're not that strong. I see why she made the decisions she made back in the day about not including these songs on the record or as bonus tracks on the deluxe edition, because they're fine. They're base hits, and a Taylor record is nothing but home runs. So she needed to put those off to the side for something like this, and that's what they are. So don't go in expecting a whole lot. Though I did see an interesting take on one of the reviews I read, which was it's fun to hear Keith Urban on an Aaron Dessner produced track because no one would have ever seen those two names on the same song before
Right.
this. So that exists, and he's not bad on that song. It's a decent Keith Urban that you get there. The Maren Morris track, unfortunately, Maren is buried under Taylor's voice throughout that whole thing, which is the recurring problem when Taylor does duets with other women, which is something I've tweeted about because I didn't even realize it until this record. Whenever she has a male guest, they always get a verse. Whenever she has a female guest, they never do. Friend of the show, Christy, supposes that this is a anti-competition kind of thing that Taylor is trying to do, being like, oh, she's in charge, so no other girls get to be heard on this record.
They don't want confusing voices and, oh, this one verse is better than
Like,
the
oh,
song.
yeah, because then comparisons start, right? It's like, oh,
Right.
she's better than Taylor. It's like, yeah, we know she's better than Taylor, but I guess Taylor's avoiding having that conversation at all, which is smart, I guess. It's just another one of those business
Sounds like a
decisions,
business move.
which is very Taylor, so it fits. Am I disappointed I don't get to hear Marin on the Marin song? Yes, but hey, what are you gonna do? But overall, it's a good package that honestly, there's not a whole lot to say about. It's what we were sold. It's what we thought we were going to get, and it's what we got. The new songs are, take or leave them. But the existing songs, a lot of them are classics. I think the versions of the big hits, the ones you come for, Love Story, You Belong With Me, and 15, they all sound wonderful and they all sound better than the originals. So it's a success. I think that Taylor did what she needed to do. People are gonna. I already replaced it in my iTunes library, and I think plenty other people are going to, because it's easy. She did the thing that she was supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, when she set out to make these records, these re-recorded masters, it's what she wanted.
Yeah.
This is her version. Like I said, Taylor's version. This is her way of stamping it. Like, this is me. This is what I wanted it to be, and more or less, that's what you're getting.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the baseline reading. Of course, you can be a little bit more philosophical about it.
Well, yes, once I have like 3 glasses of wine in me.
Yes, exactly. Oh man, listen to this thing after 3 glasses of wine would be a trip. The kind of higher version of this is that, yeah, she's kind of reclaiming her legacy here in a little bit. It's interesting to hear 31-year-old Taylor kind of harken back to this era of Taylor. She's able to play around with it a little bit. Like I said, the versions are mostly the same, but you do see every once in a while like a wink to the audience. On the closer of the original Fearless track list, which I believe is called Change, towards the end, there's a line where she, like a part of the refrain where she says, "We sing hallelujah." I swear on the last, she does sang instead of sing. And I don't think that's just a twang. I think that's on purpose. I think that's her adding a little Easter egg for the fans, being like, no, we did it. It's not, we're going to do it anymore. I'm not who I was when I was 18. I am at a creative peak. I think we triumphed with this. This is my triumph kind of thing. So it's a little sly little thing in there, if I'm reading it correctly. I could be wrong. But yeah, there's a feeling I think you get from this thing that she has triumphed in general over this, like, problem, this roadblock that was thrown into her with the lack of getting her masters and with Scooter Braun's purchase of her songs and everything. This is definitely like proof that she was able to surpass it and do what, like we said, she set out to do and re-record it. Yeah, of course, with every conversation of Taylor, I do have to also mention, yeah, we realize it's just the rich getting richer. I get that. And I get why that would maybe not be a narrative you want to support right now. But the flip side of this establishes precedent, right? I've already seen a lot of indie artists who are struggling with smaller labels not giving up their masters, which is a conversation we had last year when we talked about that Illuminati Hotties record. We were talking about the indie label Tiny Engines having a similar thing. I've seen some Tiny Engines artists on Twitter say, hey, I could do this. I could take a page from Taylor's book here and re-record my songs because my contract says this after 2 years and I can do that. And so, yeah, so this is a good, not to say that this hasn't been done before, but Taylor's such a high profile artist. A lot of people are watching this. And so I think it will have some sort of ripple effect for other artists who are struggling to get ownership of their music. So we'll see.
Yep, we'll see. And we'll see if this charts next week.
Yeah.
Probably will.
It will. This will be your number 1 record. Before we move off, the question I have for you then, what record does she move to next? So she has, 6 other ones to choose from? She skipped the self-titled, moved right to Fearless, and then you have everything that followed it. You have the self-titled, you have Speak Now, you have Red, you have 1989, and you have Reputation left. Where do you think she goes?
I thought she was going to do Speak Now next.
I mean,
but it'd be great if she did Reputation just to throw everyone off.
Yeah, I saw some theories that where people were like, well, she could do Reputation because it's her most like controversial record, or she could do the self-titled because
she skipped.
Yeah, because she skipped it. Or the wildest theory, I'm going to pull up a visual aid for our YouTube viewers here, apparently was caught in quotes by
No,
a
it'd be
fan.
deciphered.
Yeah, deciphered on by a fan by Taylor's appearance on Stephen Colbert's Late Show last night. So for the audio listeners, Taylor is holding up a collage that it appears she made for Stephen Colbert that are a bunch of pictures of him in various situations with his name all over it, with hearts and pictures of pizza and other things. And to the right of it, they have their text explaining their theory about why this says that 1989 will be the next record she re-records. Apparently, there are 14 letters, 9 hearts. 14 times 9 is 126. There are 12 stars, 5 pepperoni on the pizza. That's 12 plus 5 equals 17. 126 times 17 equals 2,142. 126 plus 17 equals 143. There are 10 pictures at the top row. 143 plus 10 equals 153. And guess what, guys? 2,142 minus 153 equals 1989. Hashtag 1989 Taylor's version.
Yes, conspiracy theory of randomly multiplying and adding and subtracting for no reason, just to get the result you want.
Arbitrary numbers and just, shoving them every which way. So yeah, I would not be surprised though, honestly, if that was the case, because guess what, guys? 1989 would be the next time she won Album of the Year. She's probably on that Grammy high right now after Folklore taking it too.
Mm-hmm.
So it would make sense why she'd want to be nostalgic for the 1989 era next. So
right, but
seems like a move.
In terms of like the hype level, Fearless is kind of top there in terms of old from the vault.
Yeah.
Do you want to go directly to 1989 or do you want to like let it build up to it?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Is because I guess it depends on what Taylor thinks the peak of her career is. Because if you look at the numbers, the answer to that question is 1989.
Yes.
It had the most #1 hits. It probably sold the best since Fearless. Fearless, because it was released in still the age of the CD, blows all the rest of her records out of the water sales-wise. There's no competing with Fearless because it was from another era. But next up is 1989 because of just how successful it was in the streaming era. So yeah, I guess it depends on whether she thinks, like you said, whether it is a momentum game or not. Because yeah, if she goes to 1989 right away, she's losing a lot of the momentum. People will get the re-records of their favorite songs, and then maybe they won't care so much about Speak Now, the self-titled, or Reputation, especially. Red is also an option here because it may not be your sales peak, but it's probably her critical peak and creative peak, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a toss-up about whether Red or 1989 is what she thinks is her peak, is what I'm saying. So I don't know. I can't get into the mind of Taylor. The fans certainly try, but I don't know if they're on it. But I could imagine 1989 next. But my heart wants Speak Now because I think it's probably my favorite.
And that's why we're getting Reputation next.
That's why we're all wrong, and it's going to be Reputation, yeah, because she wants to prove us all wrong and make us believe that it's a good record. It's fine.
Well, look what you made me do.
Yeah, look what you made her do.
Yeah, you made her sing her songs again. How dare you?
How dare you
make us singers sing their songs for recording time?
How dare you?
How dare us?
So yeah, where'd you land on it overall? You haven't really made that much of a value judgment here.
Yeah, positive on it, but also it definitely still sounded like the old album, which is
it's
kind of what you wanted. And if that's what you want to do, that's perfectly fine. And I think, like you said, it's easy because it's so similar. It's easier to replace the older versions on your playlists.
It's intelligent, but also it's 26 tracks. That's almost 2 hours worth of good Taylor Swift songs. So yeah, if this is what you want, it's put that on and it'll kill some time for you. And it sounds good. So there you go.
Perfect.
All right.
Let's round the corner here and wrap it up with some video games, shall we? Because like with television, we had some breaking news today to talk about.
We did.
But first, we have new releases.
We do.
Including Don't you forget about me. Don't.
No,
No,
Don't was canceled by ABC. We went over
that's
that.
right. Don't. But yeah, Don't Forget About Me
Yes.
coming to the PC.
I already forgot about it.
We also have Night Squad 2 for the Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Saga Frontier Remastered for the PS4, Switch, and PC. And MLB The Show 21, because it's baseball season, for the PS4 and PS5.
And
Wait, what do you mean and? That's a
And-
Sony joint.
and
And Xbox One and Xbox Series X.
yes, as we previously reported.
Yes.
Note about this release: if you bought the special edition of the game, which is called the Jackie Robinson edition, you get to play early, which means Friday the 16th. If you're everybody else, including Xbox users who are playing it on Game Pass, it is the 20th, Tuesday.
Yep, 420.
Yep. So blaze it and blaze some fastballs.
Yep.
I don't need to tell you this. I will be playing this game and I will be talking about it next week.
Will you be streaming this game?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's
someone awesome. Right? Someone awesome's got to get back at the plate.
Someone awesome is returning
someone awesome
to the plate.
Has to hit some dingers. What's someone awesome slugging percentage these days?
69.
I don't think it works like that, but okay. I actually hopped real quick note. I know this isn't the part where we talk about what you've been playing, but I hopped back into my 2020 season in MLB The Show 19 this week. And hey, pitcher Matthew Johnson still got it. He's a little rustier than he used to be, but his ERA is still about 2, so not bad. Doing pretty well.
It's okay. At least he wasn't like that Angels pitcher who had a 17 ERA over 2 games.
Which one was that? That was
the guy we took out because he was terrible.
Was that Quintana? Yeah, it was Quintana.
Quintana, yeah.
We're not a fan of Quintana. Anyway.
Yeah, we signed him this year. Yeah, Jose Quintana.
Yeah.
Signed for this year, $8 million for him. And
yeah, I think Quintana's the weak link. This is our Angels corner, real quick.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Quintana's the weak link. I'm really liking what I see right now of Chris Rodriguez. I want to see him pitch more. He pitched in today's game. It didn't end well, but he started really strong.
No, today's game was bad. But then again,
yeah, you know what? Yeah. I'm still okay with a 7-5 record.
Yeah,
it's not the worst. We're going in. We had some tough battles with Kansas City, but we'll be at what next is a home game against the Twins. So
yep,
we'll be fine.
Home
we'll be
game.
Fine.
We'll Come back home. We'll be fine.
Everybody needs to stop getting hurt. Because
yeah, that was terrible. Right that was scary for like a week. Every new person going on the
DL. Every day I was finding out about a new one this week. I swear. Like I was just like, what, Stassi 2? I was like, geez, come on.
Oh, anyway. Stassi 2?
Stassi 2. I think he had like a he had like a Ohtani style blister or something. So he's out for a few days, and then Rendon's out for his groin.
Yep. Or as I call it, the big penis injury. Anyway. Anytime I see a groin injury, it's like, oh, he has big penis syndrome.
I mean, that's why he stands the way he does when he's at bat. He kind of does that sitting things because he wants everybody to see his crotch. It makes sense to me. Anyway.
Anyways, big crotches were swinging around today.
I like how none of that plays for anybody that doesn't care about baseball. We were just speaking the language.
MLB The Show was brought up, so
it's true. We had free pass.
Free pass. Speaking of free passes, there are no free passes available because Nintendo does not give out free shit.
It's true.
Unless it's Mario 35 and Pac-Man 99 and Tetris 99. In which case, that is limited free shit.
Oh, thank you for reminding me about Pac-Man 99. I didn't have that in the bits in a second. I'm gonna add that real quick.
Anyways, Nintendo had an indie showcase literally hours ago.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna write about this because nothing really big came out of it, but you had it already in the template for me, so I was like, I guess he wants me to talk about the indie showcase. So I have it here.
I figured there might not be a whole lot of other stuff to talk about. So.
Well, there was. You're wrong.
Well, there was. I was wrong.
It's okay.
That's okay.
So what happened in the indie showcase?
Well, independent video games got the spotlight.
Hey,
or
what do you
independent
know?
developers got the spotlight. As the Nintendo announced Road 96, a procedurally generated road trip game.
Yeah. Seems interesting.
Yeah. We also have Aerial _Knights, Never Yield, which is a parkour runner.
Yeah.
We had Last Stop and Hindsight coming
Those are
from
two different games.
Yeah, two different games coming from one of our favorites, Annapurna.
Yeah.
Or Annapurna Interactive, more specifically. Right. We also have Ollie Ollie World, sequel to the skateboarding game, Ollie Ollie.
Makes sense.
Where you can perform an ollie.
Maybe two,
or
if you
two,
so desire.
back to back.
Yeah.
We also have The Longing, which is a tense game about waking up a king.
Yeah. I didn't watch this thing, by the way. This is just anecdotal, so things don't make any sense. I guess you had to be there.
You had to be there, which was very long. It was like a 90s,
yeah,
like a 50-minute presentation too.
I was busy watching the Angels lose.
That's okay. There is no game. Wrong Dimension.
Yes.
That's the name of it. There is no game,
Yes.
Wrong Dimension, which is coming to the Switch.
I mentioned that's coming to the Switch because this was already on PC. It was released late last year.
Yep.
Seems like a neat little game where, you're kind of trying to figure out where the game in the game went. And it seems like it's a fun little meta kind of funny satire thing.
Kind of like with Stanley's Parable.
Very Stanley's Parable. I saw a lot of comparisons to that.
Yep.
Good pull.
Thank you. We also have TMNT, Shredder's Revenge. Yes, those turtles coming to the Switch.
Yeah, this is, I guess, something that was announced late last year. I think it's coming out on everything, but this is just confirming that this classic TMNT Turtles beat 'em up is also going to get a Switch version.
Yay. I mean, it goes well with the Scott Pilgrim that they just released.
Very similar, yes.
We also have Chris Tales, which is a time-traveling JRPG.
Yeah, maybe they found the same portal that the kids in that show found.
The Secrets of Sulphur Springs.
Yeah.
We also have the very, very Japanese name, Getsu Fumaden, Undying Moon, which is a roguelike game.
It's a roguelike.
Yep. Everything changes. We also have Aztec, Forgotten Gods.
See, it's Aztec with like a CH, like tech.
Yes, like tech for Aztec, which is a 3D action game.
Yeah.
Skull, The Hero Slayer, which is a 2D platformer roguelike.
Yeah.
Cross.
There's like a trend here.
Yep. We also have Art of Rally, Fez, and a remake of House of the Dead, all coming to Switch.
Yeah, all of these, of course, existing games on other platforms coming to Switch. Most notable here is Fez.
Yes.
It was a big puzzle game back in, 2011, 2012? So almost 10 years ago at this point.
Must be, because I played Fez on my PSP.
Yes. So yeah, it's cool to see that coming to Switch for a whole new generation of people to play it.
Yep. And lastly, Ollie Ollie. We already have that. So it has to be wrapped up with Oxenfree.
Yes.
2, to be specific, Lost Signals, which was announced.
Yeah, this is a sequel to Oxenfree. That was a visual novel style game about a bunch of teen kids. Very dialogue heavy, very story driven, with a cool 2D art style. So this seems to be more of that. So if you liked Oxenfree, I started Oxenfree and never finished it, but it seemed like an interesting thing. This might get me to actually play Oxenfree.
All right. And so that was the games announced. A lot of roguelike, a lot of 2Ds, a lot of different styles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Cool stuff. So, like I said, that's a close to an hour press conference that they surprised on us today.
We just saved you some time. Trust me.
Well, to save you on other time for other news.
Yes.
We have gaming bits.
Yeah. What else happened in the world of video games this week?
While it wasn't announced during the actual indie showcase,
Mhm.
Nintendo decided to unleash
Yeah, both.
release the blue Nintendo Switch Lite.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a
This is different from
color,
the aqua version that they already have.
right? Yeah. So if you don't like that aqua color and you weren't happy with the pink or the yellow, now there's a straight up blue. So
It
yeah,
looks like the Hyrulean blue,
it
but
does.
no Hyrulean symbol on it, though.
No, just straight up, not adorned with any special stuff. Switch Lite, but yeah, Switch Lite.
Yep.
So
We also have the first major PS5 firmware update, which was released today
mhm.
and addresses the PS5 games storage.
So what I mean by that is there's been some issues with where you can and can't store
Mhm.
PS5 games. Previously, it was that you couldn't even put PS5 games on external hard drives. They had to be on the internal memory. The
Yep.
reason for that is because in order to play a PS5 game, they're built in a way where they have to take advantage of the internal SSD. So you can't run them from an external drive. This firmware update doesn't change that part, but what it does allow you to do is it allows you to save PS5 games that you don't plan on playing. You could call it cold storage, as
Right.
opposed to warm storage, I guess, which is being able to play it at a drop of a
Well, it's
hat.
active storage.
Right. So yeah, so this is just another option for people who are running out of space on the relatively pretty small 1 terabyte hard drive in those PS5s. So it's
Right.
good.
Yep. Sounds good. We also have Outriders bug, which deletes your inventory, and there's no immediate fix
Yeah.
yet.
So a lot of big Outriders fans took to social media to complain about this. I guess you would open up your game and suddenly your character would be completely naked and all your guns would be gone.
They got robbed.
Yeah, well, apparently this is so prevalent that the studio is getting on it. They don't have an immediate fix yet. There's some workarounds that may recover some of your gear, but not all of it. And sometimes your stats are different when you do. So basically, just a heads up, you might lose your shit. And there's no quick fix, but I'm sure a patch is incoming.
And just a heads up, because they treat Square Enix is treating this as games as a service.
Yeah.
It's why you kind of want to wait for them to fix all the bugs first.
Yeah, so just be aware. It didn't hit everybody from what I can tell, but some people did get affected. So
Yep.
hopefully you weren't too attached to that gun.
Hopefully. I mean, the gun clearly wasn't attached if it got ripped off your body along with your clothes.
Well done. Velcro guns. So I always put my guns on Velcro.
Previously, you talked about The World Ends With You anime.
Yep.
Well, guess what? The sequel? Yeah.
Yes.
The World Ends With You gets an official July release date.
Yeah, and this is coming out on everything this time. Because it's multi-platform, that means it won't have the two-screen gameplay of the DS original.
Yep.
So I'm not sure exactly how it will play. I do understand that game later got ported to iPhone, iOS, like iPad and stuff like that. And so there must be other versions of how to control that game. But yeah, this sequel will be coming out on PlayStation, PC, et cetera, Switch, et cetera. So you'll be able to play it no matter where.
All games.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. We also have report sales that
States.
Report states and sales, but some reports state that some internal Sony developers are unhappy with the company's focus on blockbuster games.
Okay, so yeah, this isn't exactly news, but this was the top story in video games this week. Reporter Jason Schreier for Bloomberg basically blew this one open, as he's wont to do, and basically talked to a bunch of developers, including developers over at Sony Bend and some other studios in kind of the Sony umbrella, and got their kind of temperature about how they felt about Sony's approach to what games they choose to release and what don't release. The pseudo news that came out of this report is that one, at some point, an internal studio was going to work on the original Uncharted game remake. Then that was stopped, and then they were pitched a Last of Us remake. You're probably thinking, but Last of Us, the first one, came out in 2013. Is there that much reason to make a complete remake of that game? And that's a good question.
Considering that The Last of Us came out for the PS3 and then was immediately got a remaster for the PS4.
So yeah, a lot of question marks going on there, but that seems like the kind of game that Sony is more likely to greenlight as opposed to an original idea. So that kind of got the ball rolling about like a conversation about like, is Sony going to greenlight any original ideas? Or are they only going to hammer these remakes or these big budget sequels to their existing properties? Another example of this, Bend, who made Days Gone, which was their first original project after being kind of pinch hitter for a bunch of other games in the past for Sony. They were ready to make a sequel to Days Gone, and Sony said no. It's unclear exactly why at this point, but yeah, looks like that a kibosh has been completely put on a Days Gone sequel, maybe to focus on existing projects. Otherwise, it kind of paints a gloomy picture of Sony's corporate structure and like the ideas like what kind of games they want to focus on, especially when so much of their company right now is going through such a shakeup after the closure of Japan studios. Like, Sony's in a wild spot right now, and it's really unclear about what they want to do.
It seems like they want to make one as a studio, you always want to make the hits. But if you have to make a judgment call on a known property or an unknown property, 4 out of 5 times you're going to make the call for the known property.
Yeah, it's what we still see happening in movies right now, which is basically the studios
point to Disney for that.
Right, the studios do not want to take risks on smaller filmmakers anymore. It's just sequels that are getting greenlit or adaptations of other media.
It's literally how the Emoji Movie was greenlit.
Yes, it's the Emoji Movie.
I'm sorry, I like pointing to that because if you had to make a property based off emojis, which everyone knows, or some unknown IP, you're going to try and put your money on something that's known, even if it does come out like shit.
That's true. Yeah, there's probably a bigger conversation to have about this, but I just thought it was interesting. Of course, the big next titles for Sony are, hey, what do you know? Sequels. Horizon, The Lost, what is that subtitle?
The Forbidden West.
Forbidden West, and then the God of War sequel. And well, Ratchet and Clank is already going to be released in like 2 months. But yeah, beyond that. So yeah.
I mean, that counts as their upcoming sequels.
So yeah,
franchises.
We'll see. Yeah, more or less.
Yep.
So yeah, who knows whether this is going to be just how it's run over there, or maybe there's a change to come. Who can say?
Who can say?
We'll see.
But we have 2 other little bits remaining, though.
2 real small
including
bits.
Deathloop, which got delayed again.
Yes.
Again.
Yes.
In the Infinite Deathloop, apparently, as it was delayed to September.
Yeah.
And possibly later.
So people are looking forward to that new Arcane shooter. We'll have to wait even longer, but
makes me
it
wonder
will
what
come
the
out.
Problem is because it seemed from the gameplay they showed,
seemed done,
almost complete.
Maybe they're just really worried about some final like bugs and polish stuff. They don't want to release it when they're not confident in it.
Right, they're worried about you appearing naked and all your gear's gone.
Exactly. Yes, they want to make sure the servers work on day one. People aren't getting cross play issues. Yes, they're taking notes from Square Enix, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Don't do what they did.
And lastly, for those of you who like those Tetris 99 style games where you're battling against everyone, kind of a battle royale status.
Yeah.
Pac-Man 99 released.
Yes.
I
haven't played this yet. I haven't played this yet, but it is free to Nintendo Online subscribers, just like Tetris and Mario 35 was before Mario's untimely death on the 31st.
Yes.
But yeah, this is Pac-Man, though. This is a Pac-Man flavored version of that. Seems chaotic.
Yeah, it is definitely chaotic. It's a standard version of the first level of Pac-Man, and you're running around trying to eat all the dots. Standard Pac-Man.
So it's Pac-Man.
But the way you attack is by getting the power dots and then eating the ghosts.
I see.
Eventually, the ghost, the more dots you eat and the more ghosts you kill, it'll level up your your board to where it'll release a whole line of ghosts. So when you hit the power and you get one of the power pellets, as you eat all the ghosts, it rapidly fires a bunch of attacks to different people. And the different attacks are the different ghosts, more ghosts flying in. And if you can't get to a power pellet to eat them all to get to launch back, you'll get trapped and die.
So that sounds like a lot of fun if you're a big Pac-Man person.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of remember Pac-Man Championship Edition?
Yes.
Kind of that more brutal version of the game. Like that sounds like fans of that will love this.
Right, but nothing like Pac-Man 3D World.
Well, no.
No.
Let's forget about Pac-Man World and all of those games.
Hey, Pac-Man is a fighter now at Smash Brothers.
It's true. Pac-Man can kick your ass if he wants to. So
All
that's there if you want it.
Yep, and that's the news we have.
Yeah.
So, you played a game, and I played a game.
Yeah, I played a demo for a game, so I'll just talk about it real quick here.
Yes.
So I kickstarted a new project from a new indie developer called D-Cell Games, and it's called Unbeatable. And basically the synopsis is it is a rhythm game in a world where music is banned. So playing music is a crime.
Told me about this last week.
No, I actually didn't know about it last week, but I tweeted about it, and that's how you know.
Maybe that's what I saw.
That's what you saw. I backed it. There's a demo for it right now, and it's cool as shit. So I like rhythm games.
Yes.
And this is a really cool idea of a rhythm game. It's just moving up and down as your only input. But enemies are coming at you, usually from one side, but sometimes from both sides. And if they're coming up from the top, you press up when it hits the rhythm indicator. If they're coming from the bottom, you hit down. Oh, but what if it's a long note? Well, then you hold the direction, of course. Typical rhythm game rules, right? Mm-hmm. If there's one in the middle, you do up and down in rapid succession to really beat them up.
Yeah, okay.
And so, that's the concept. As enemies are coming out at you, sometimes it's just like a little like obstacle to dodge. So you would just like up or down to avoid the obstacle. If you played it, rhythm games, this all sounds pretty familiar. Right now, the game isn't due out until in final form until 2023. Yeah, I know that sounds like a billion years away.
But I mean, it's 2 years, yes.
Yeah, but they just started kind of final development on it. But what they have produced is this demo, which lets you just play the rhythm portion of the game. There's a whole adventure game portion with dialogue trees and more that's also going to be part of the package when it's finalized. And they plan on doing episodic teasers that take place in the world of the game that will have little bits and pieces of a story introducing you to the characters and some more songs to play. So if you want to help them out, they've already funded their Kickstarter, but they're working on goals above that as well. So if you want to help them out, just go to Kickstarter and search Unbeatable, and kick some money their way. That seems like a really cool project. I'm already backed it and ready to go. So I'm excited to see what happens with that.
Sounds interesting. You love rhythm games.
Yeah, this one's really, really cool. It's got a cool art style. It's very like, they describe it as a VHS anime. So like kind of that 90s aesthetic. But it's really cool looking. It's really cool premise. The music is good. And the game is fun. And even in these very early stages of this demo. So the demo is called Arcade Mix. The first episode of the episodic series is going to be called Unbeatable White Label. And you can wishlist that on Steam now. But down the line, you'll be able to download that from their website soon as well. The demo is not on Steam, the Arcade Mix demo, but you can get that from their website. So just search D-Cell Games, and you probably find them. So Unbeatable. It's pretty cool. I can't wait to see more of it.
All right. So I also played a mobile game.
Okay.
So while I wait for Pokemon Unite to appear,
to unite
and grace us with its presence, I've had a passing interest for about the past year now, ever since last year when I did, and I might not date myself, but kind of nerd myself out here. Remember when I did Fantasy League for League of Legends?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Well, I did that not knowing jack shit about League of Legends.
Right.
Terrible, terrible time. But hey, it was a fun 2 weeks trying to figure out what to do. And then I eventually drafted a guy who was out of the league, and I didn't know that, but his name sounded familiar, which is why he was in the news. I was
Whoops.
like, oh, I saw this guy in the news. He must be signed. Yes, to someone not in the league anymore. So I've never played League of Legends. I've barely watched it, maybe a total of 5 hours in my life. And that's like sporadically 20 minutes here, half hour here, like max.
Mhm.
So my baseline for this game is low. And then Riot Games announced League of Legends Wild Rift, which is the mobile version
Right.
of League of Legends. And I had pre-downloaded this, or like I had pre-registered for it because I saw it when I was pre-registering for the Crash Bandicoot mobile game. I was like, oh, if I'm pre-registering for games, might as well do this. If I don't like it, I can always delete it. That's
Right.
the
It's a
thing.
mobile game. That's what you
It's a
do.
mobile game. It's what you do. So, as an introduction and coming from that kind of headspace of this game, I can see why people like League of Legends. It's a fun game.
Yeah, side note, when you wrote this down, I didn't parse it correctly, but I realized about 5 minutes ago, I was like, oh, that's what that is that mobile league game.
Yes.
I was thinking LOL, I wasn't thinking of LOL.
I'm sorry. Should I lowercase the all the O?
I don't know. But yeah, so okay, going from 0 to 60 on league, how do you feel?
um, I still feel a bit lost in terms of
Yeah.
finding out what characters to use, but I did find one character, Garen, who's basically the night tank. Who it's and the controls are very simple. You just have move and 3 attacks, and from what I can gather, it definitely plays like a League of Legends light mobile game. Because clearly, like between watching like actual matches of people playing and me playing on this, there's a lot more communication that goes on during those official matches than there is here. Because you can't really communicate with other people unless you're in the same party. There is a chat function and some like quick points to like ask for help or tell people to go here. But for the most part, you're kind of playing it blind and kind of silent with other people. So in that and a bunch of randos too.
Yeah.
At least that's my experience. I'm sure like if you have people to play with who are interested in playing this together, you'll have more fun with it. Like I played a couple matches with my brother who I who loves League of Legends. He wears his Cloud9 hats everywhere and plays on a mobile PC. On a PC. So to play for him to play on a mobile game, kind of different. He
Yeah.
said he was telling me how it kind of does the thing, kind of does what it's supposed to do, which is give you the basic generic functions and like not as many hotkeys because it's all on a mobile, so it's right there on your phone. But you do get the basic sense of what League of Legends is and how it functions and works as a game and as a team game and a MOBA game.
Okay.
Some overall take on it is essentially positive, especially coming from Zero. Not sure how it plays well with like people who are of that fan base though, because it
Yeah.
seems to have mixed reactions of oh this character is missing or this character is more like this character. It's not an exact 1-to-1 ratio because it can't be.
Yeah.
But for what it is, it's apparently a very fine mobile version of League of Legends.
Yeah. Like I feel like it's a hard line to walk, right? Because who is this catering to? They probably want to cater to both audiences, right? They probably
Right.
want it because it's a mobile version. They want it to cater to new people, of course, because it's going to be more accessible this way, especially internationally, where mobile games are the biggest market.
Mm-hmm.
But they also probably want to get people who are already on the PC version to have a version of League to take with them. So yeah, they probably don't want to alienate their base too much, like for reasons that you said, whether it's differences in characters, differences in abilities, differences in game kind of flow. But the most surprising thing about this thing, from what you've said and also from what I've heard elsewhere, it's pretty much just League, which is wild because taking a PC game and putting it on a mobile platform does not sound like an easy thing to do, especially something that has such a big scale where you play it, where there's people playing it professionally. So the ability that they have to shrink it down and make it more accessible, that's pretty that's pretty wild that they were able to pull it off and that people don't hate it.
Yeah, it's a wild rift, if you will.
Yes, that rift is pretty wild. No, that's good news, I think. I mean, I'm probably not going to be pulled into that
No,
rift.
and like I said, this game is definitely not for everybody. But
Yeah, it's still League.
if you have a passing fancy and don't have, like, say, the PC build or just a PC in general to play it, but you have a mobile phone, you can download this and it will teach you tutorials of what everything means, how to play, and give you some characters that you can try out
Yeah,
in a in a PC, or not PC, in an AI match, and then you can also take it online in the PvP matches as well.
that's good because I feel like onboarding is a problem for those established games.
Yeah,
So to have a nice, more gentle ramp for new people is good.
yeah, and then it's like I said, this is built for new people, I feel like, but also for those people who League of Legends has been inaccessible because mobile games are everywhere, and sometimes you don't have the PC or you don't have the time to sit in front of a PC, like, to play a full game. These matches run anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes tops, which is, from what I've considered, fast in League of Legends. Because typically it's like half hour up from what I've heard and from what I've seen. Like, unless you're dealing with like professionals who will trounce you in like 15, 20 minutes, it's typically very a very long game. But because
Yeah,
it's mobile, it has to be short, it has to be quick. So the leveling up process has to be faster than what it is on a PC.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm having fun playing it. I haven't really delved into other characters, which is kind of more on my fault because I had rushed into danger and fighting. So having chosen a guy who is built for that doesn't make me want to change my style.
You're right. You're less. You don't want to change it so
Yes, but it
early.
also does, I understand, make me a bad teammate because I don't I'm a terrible teammate doing that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. How's that part of the game been? Kind of interacting with other people online. Has it been? Does the community seem like they're really harsh to new players? Because I feel like that's a problem on the PC end.
Well, you can't like voice chat
Oh, there's
unless
no
you're
voice
in a
chat.
party. Not unless you're in a party.
Weird. You would think a game like this, you would almost need it, right?
I'm not sure because I play the game on silent, on mute.
So people could be yelling at you. You have no idea.
I probably.
It's probably actually the most blissful way to play it. Just to be completely ignorant of letting your team down. I don't know, because that's the stuff that's been scared. That's always scares me away of those kind of competitive games. It's just like I don't want somebody ragging on me for not doing the exact thing that they think I should do at every moment, which is what I usually get with those teamwork based games. So yeah, maybe it's best to play it without the sound.
Well, I play all my mobile games without sound.
Yeah, that's smart. That's just clean living.
Yep. But yeah, League of Legends Wild Rift mobile game. It's free, at least on Android. It might be $1 on iOS, but
Okay.
it's a fun entry into what is clearly a more vast world that
Yes,
I would rather get into,
just
at least
scratching.
immediately.
You're scratching the surface, really, at this point.
Yeah, and really it scratches that curiosity itch that I have for it.
Right. Yeah.
Like I said, at least until Pokemon Unite comes out, because I can understand that game a lot more interested.
Or
more
can
easily-
you? We'll see, right? We don't necessarily know what that thing's gonna be. What if it's just as wild? Like it was just like League, but with Pokemon.
Right, but at least I can see a Pokemon and understand that's fire, that's grass, that's water, rather than I have to know what these characters are and what they do because I've never seen
Yeah.
them before.
But just wait, though. It's going to be more elaborate than you think. It's going to be like, oh, well, psychic types are good over here. And like, you have to know the flow for an electric type. Because if you don't know electric types, you shouldn't play electric types. Like, there's so much gatekeeping going on in that genre. I feel like there's no avoiding it even for the Pokemon one. So
Probably
just wait.
not.
Just wait.
I don't know, but let's put a cap on this then, unless you played anything else.
No, Light Games Week. That's pretty much, like I said, I jump back into the show, but I'll be playing more of the new show when that comes out on Tuesday.
And then I've been streaming my blind playthrough of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Right.
I've had some people raid me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was fun.
Scary.
For the past week. Well, no, because they end their stream and they raid my stream.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
That's how raids work.
Yeah. So if you're watching this because you know who we are now, then hi, welcome new listeners.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I set up some hotkeys on Twitch.
Okay.
Some bots. So anytime someone lurks, the comment pops up. Oh, clearly you must have gone to watch or listen to another episode of the Media Boat podcast.
Just push them that way.
Just keep pushing it. Like I said, it's why our views go up on the website.
Maybe, or maybe so.
Maybe.
All right. Well,
all right.
In that case, let's wrap things up for this week's episode. This has been the Media Boat Podcast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week for another episode. We'll talk about the show. We'll talk about, well, I don't know. There's no new movies, so I guess we'll figure out something to talk about next week.
I mean, I'm going to talk about Eric Church's Heart.
Right.
And Baby Soul and Baby Ampersand.
We'll find out. But yeah, all of that and more. So stay tuned. In the meantime, if you want to watch us in video form, you can do so on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com, search Media Boat Podcast. Like, subscribe, click the bell, the usual business, comment, whatever you want to do. You can also catch our new episodes in podcast audio form by going to Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, even if you're one of those people, which statistically you probably are. And just search Media Boat Podcast and you'll find our podcast there. Sign up and download new episodes as they happen. You can also see us post new episodes on our website, which you just mentioned, mediaboatpodcast.com. Go there and see the crazy pictures that I put on to advertise our show every week. Then you can also ask us questions, mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to be featured on the show, hey, we might read your question. We still, to this date, 5 years into the show, have never read a listener question. So please submit a listener question and we will answer it. I promise. Then you can also catch us on social media. On Twitter, our handle is @MediaBoatCast. And Facebook, search Media Boat Podcast, find our page that way. Like, subscribe, comment on there. We might actually respond to. That will do it. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week for another episode. In the meantime, have a good week. Get vaccinated if you are eligible, and stay safe.
Yep. I know we don't really talk about that here, but vaccinations become available to everyone starting tomorrow.
In California.
On the 15th.
Where we are.
But yeah.
But yeah.
Don't go to a sporting event or try not to until that happens.
Yeah, just
even
wait.
though you could probably buy a concert ticket and be fine because that's later.
But like we said earlier, wait and see. It's a big wait and see time. Wait and see. And you can wait and see another episode of the Media Boat Podcast next week. But for
Unless
now,
you're listening to the future, in which case you listen to it.
You can't do that. You do that in the year-end wrap-up shows. You can't do it now. Don't burn it now. All right, bye.
All right, bye.